Hello everyone, it's Lindsay, and today I'm back with a Bible journaling process video for you guys. This one's going to look a little differently than my last several journaling processes because I'm working in a kind of more traditional journaling Bible. So I'm diving in and creating using the Be Born in My Heart kit from Open Journey. This is the newest kit release. I will have the unboxing link down below. There are still kits. There is the digital option, so it's not too late to dive in with us. If you entered the giveaway on the unboxing, be sure to head on over to that video, check the description box because I did go ahead and announce the winners. So I want to get those prizes sent out to you. But I know Advent started November 27th and I was out of the state, and leading up to the time that I left and ever since then, my life has just been a storm. It's been crazy. And so honestly, I've really struggled with this holiday season and Christmas, and it just feels so, I don't know. I don't want any part of it. I didn't want to put my tree up. I finally put the tree up because I figured I only got a couple more Christmases with the kids in the house, and I would hate for them to like look back on their childhood and not have, us celebrating Christmas. And we don't do Santa and all the like commercialized Christmas. We try to focus on, the reason for the season, Jesus. But I just have really been in a funk the last couple weeks. So I had not started Advent or any kind of Advent project. And initially when I did the unboxing, I had planned on working through the Advent cards. I have those here on the awesome little stand here. You can see I haven't even flipped them since day 5. I guess it's not too bad, right? Today's like day 6. I don't even know what day it is. That's how crazy it's been. So I thought about journaling my way through these, but I ended up deciding to just go through the devotional kit. Now, I know many of you have enjoyed the series that I did through Living Stones, where I went through like an in-depth Bible study at the start of the process and then did the process. I will not be doing that for this kit for a couple reasons. I am going to be working through the devotional content. I want you to focus on what God has for you during this Advent season and not necessarily what He's taking me through as I work through this kit. And I feel like I've kind of given you guys the tools as I went through that process. And so you can kind of figure out how to do that study. But also I don't have it, friends. I don't have the energy, the mental capacity. I'm struggling hard. It's a tough season right now. And so I am just going to keep it fairly simple. And thankfully I can do that with these kits because there's a lot of elements already kind of pre-prepared and it isn't going to take very much. Now I'm going to try to throw in something kind of fun for you guys to learn in each one of these, but they're going to be fairly simple. And I think it'll be kind of nice to go back to simple for a little while. So like I said, I had initially planned something completely different when I did that unboxing video. I had planned on working in a mixed media journal, but then I saw that like 95% of the creative team is working in some sort of art journal as they work through this kit. And so I figured I would do something a little bit different. That way you guys have some different inspiration. So I will link this particular Bible down below, but any 2-inch margin Bible would work. And the awesome thing about this kit is it comes with like mixed media pieces that are kind of fit into, size to fit within that margin space. So I don't even have to do a whole lot of mess. This is going to be perfect for my limited time and mental capacity right now. So I opened up the devotional and initially was going to start in Luke 10:41 through 42, where it's Jesus addressing Martha. He says, "Martha, Martha, the Lord answered, you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. Mary has chosen what is better and will not be taken away from her." So you can go through and read that story there in Luke 10. But I jumped down to this section titled Now, and this is 2 Corinthians 6:2. It says, "Behold, now is a very acceptable time. Behold, now is the day of salvation." And I just thought this was very applicable for right now, because I'm starting late and you may be starting late. Maybe you didn't kick off some daily project on November 27th and you are feeling like you've missed the train to do any kind of Advent study or recognize Advent this year. And that is not true. Honestly, this is just, we have kind of created this calendar that we follow and follow these rules, and there is never a wrong time to prepare our hearts to focus on Jesus. And Advent is the anticipation of the coming of Christ, and coming on Christmas, which actually he was probably more likely born in the spring, not December 25th. So right off the gate, you don't even have to stick to the rules of the calendar when it goes to that. So looking at now, I'm going to start now, and it probably won't be a daily project. In fact, I know it's not going to be a daily project. I'm going to be able to just do this as I can over the next few weeks, but I'm just giving myself plenty of grace, and I hope that that's an encouragement for those of you who are maybe kind of finding yourself in the same place. So I pulled together a couple things. I've already cut out some of the stickers that come in the devotional kit. These two cards actually come from the add-on envelope that you can pick up. That's this one here that has some extra little pieces in there. And what I have found right off the gate with working in this Bible, because I've not worked in one of these in a very, very long time. I usually work in my interleave Bible or the illustrating Bible. You guys know that has a lot of room in it. There isn't a ton of room in here. And so for those of you who are creating in here, you might struggle with, I want to create art. I want to fill that margin space, but I also want some room to journal. And so I used this card piece to write out a prayer. And then that gives me some additional space that's also kind of hidden away. So I oftentimes do workshops and classes and things like that, and I bring my Bibles. And so people, of course, are welcome to go through my Bibles. I'm pretty open with, all my struggles, the highs, the lows, everything with you guys. But, maybe there are some prayers that I want a little more hidden, and these cards kind of make that a way to do that. So I've got that. I'm going to show you a fun trick for using wax seals. So Ingrid carries these in her shop. She has a ton of just really beautiful custom wax seals. I love this because if you're getting into wax seals, they're kind of making a comeback. They even have supplies at Michael's and Joann's now. Even Walmart. I think I got a kit from Walmart a few years ago, but their seals are pretty generic. It might be like a teddy bear or a rose, or you can order your initial or something like that. So I like that this actually has Ingrid's artwork that she has created for these seals. And so I have done videos where I use the traditional, candle and wax and things like that, but I had an idea because I don't have very many colored waxes, but I have a lot of embossing powders. And honestly, I'm probably not going to use up this container in a lifetime. And if I do, I can always replace it. I need to use my stuff. So I experimented with actually using embossing glazes in this case as wax for seals. So I'm going to be showing you how I do that. I'm going to also try to make a video reel for Instagram. So if you're wanting to kind of save that particular tutorial and come back to it, that should be over on Instagram here pretty soon, as well as my plan. So I will show you that little technique and some other little tricks, but we're going to keep it fairly simple. So again, we are journaling in 2 Corinthians 6:2, which says, "Behold, now is a very acceptable time. Behold, now is the day of salvation." So let me go ahead, put you guys on fast forward. I'll put together this Bible journaling entry. All right, so rather than get messy with inks and paints and all that mixed media nonsense, I'm just going straight for this margin piece. So I'm using this ruler. This is a ruler from Tim Holtz, and I'm just kind of making some marks on it. The nice thing about these pieces is they are slightly wider than that margin space, so it gives you some flexibility to kind of do whatever you want. So I'm choosing to tear the edge that's going to be closest to the text. I did go ahead and run a water brush, so a little line of water, just clean water, down the edge, and that just gives me a more controlled tear line, so it's not getting squirrely as I tear away that paper. But you could even experiment with using some decorative scissors or border dies and have it hang out the edge of the Bible. So I like that you have some flexibility with these wider margin pieces, but I'm going to cut mine right down to the edge, and I save all of these little scraps because I can use them in other pages later on if I want to. And then I just use some regular glue to adhere that down to the page. And then now here's a little trick for these stickers. So I'm laying them out so they spell out "Prepare my heart now." And I'm kind of fussy about positioning these. So I just reveal a small corner and cut away the backing sheet. And then that way I can kind of line it up, position it where I want, and then I press down on the area of the sticker that is exposed, so that top right hand corner of the Y when I'm ready. And then that creates a hinge so I can pull away the rest of the backing sheet. That makes it so that you don't, accidentally stick it down somewhere where you don't want it to. There's a little bit of like static to these stickers sometimes, and they just kind of have a mind of their own and grab a hold of the page as you're going to place it down. And so this gives you a lot more control when you're sticking down those stickers. Now, you might be a rebel and, aren't super fussy and just stick it down. I wish that I could do life that way, but I have to have some control. So that's my little trick for those. So there is my title, and you could pretty much be done at that point. And honestly, I probably should have. I wanted to have some different content in here for you guys and not just be like a 30-second video. So I pulled out this stencil and some crackle texture paste, and I keep trying this technique and I really am struggling with it. I think it's because my crackle paste is a little bit older and I'm not moving quick enough. So what I'm doing is I'm just putting a small amount of it through the stencil, trying to avoid the areas where the title is. And then I'm going to add some embossing powder. I'm actually going to use embossing glaze in Rustic Wilderness. And you want to add this while that texture paste is still wet. Now, I live in kind of a drier area. It's just, I don't know, it's dry cold in my house right now. And these are small areas that were stenciled. So there's already kind of a dried layer to this texture paste. So when I add this embossing powder, it's not really wanting to stick to the texture paste. I don't know. I might need to just get some new texture paste. I did try squirting a little bit of water in mine to kind of rehydrate it. I think I'm just not moving quick enough, and I'm not using a stencil that has a big enough surface area, I think is my issue. But I'm going to power through. I set that aside, let it air dry. And this is going to be really subtle because there's such small little dots, but that crackle paste does crackle. And then I'm going to heat set the embossing powder that's over that crackle paste. So I made sure the crackle paste is good and dry, and I'm trying to work pretty quick because I don't want to melt the stickers that are on the page. But you can see it's just blowing away most of the embossing powder because it didn't stick to the crackle paste. But it did in a few areas. You can see there, it just creates this really neat kind of cracked tile look. But I'm gonna kind of try to work with this. So I'm pulling the stencil back out. I'm positioning it back over the areas that I had stenciled. So I'm kind of fitting it in like a puzzle. And I want to bring out some more green because I wanted those dots to be green. So unfortunately, I don't have the Rustic Wilderness Distress Crayon. The closest thing I had is Forest Moss. So I'm using that crayon and then a stencil brush, and I'm just blending that into some areas. This is kind of nice because then I can let the dots kind of fade out on areas where the texture paste is not and kind of fit in closer to the title. And it is kind of covering the texture paste, but it's not fully the effect I wanted. The effect that I wanted was that embossing glaze on the stencil, but I'm going to keep trying it because I know I've gotten it to work. I really honestly think it works better with stencils that have a bigger stenciled area. Like what is it? The lattice work stencil or trellis that have bigger spaces. So there is that. It's getting a little busy, but we're gonna keep adding some more. So I've pulled out a scripty verse stamp from Open Journey, and I'm inking that up with some fired brick archival ink, and then I'm just randomly stamping that in a few places. I'm wanting to pull in reds and greens since I'm going to have red and green on that journaling card. So I'm not concerned about wanting to be able to read what this says. I'm just using it to add some red texture. So I'm going to set that aside and work on my card elements. This is my little hack for painting these die cuts. So I'm using some mint tape. That's the blue. It's like a low tack washi tape. And I'm taping it to a piece of paper with the stickiness facing up. That way I can stick my die cut down onto that tape. I did not stick it down quite well enough, so I'm having to go back in there and re-stick it. But when you do push it down on the tape, it holds it, so then it's easier to paint. So this is a great way to save time. Die cut a bunch of basic dies out at the beginning of the month out of white cardstock, and then you can paint them to customize them for the pages that you're working on. So I'm using some Rustic Wilderness Distress paint. I painted the front and the back of this little greenery piece. I will have that die linked down below for you guys. So I let that dry. It doesn't take very long. And then now we're going to add some sparkle. So I pulled out some Ranger Multimedia Matte, and I'm just using a small paintbrush to add it to some areas of this little greenery piece. I'm not completely covering it. And then I'm dipping that into some rock candy glitter. So you kind of get that frosty snow look on the greenery. Set that aside. And now here is my hack for the seals. So that brown is some parchment paper. This really kind of helps cut down on mess and allows you to create outside of your Bible, because this you probably don't want to do directly in your Bible. And then I'm using the spoon where you would typically put the wax pellets in, and then I'm just filling it almost all the way up to the top with Distress Embossing Glaze, but you can use any embossing powder. And then I'm using my embossing tool to heat it up, and I heat it till it's fully melted, and you can see it's pretty liquidy. So you may want to let it just kind of sit in the spoon for just a second to not be quite as liquidy, so it's easier to control. But you're going to pour that out on the parchment paper, and then while that is sitting with the seal, I immediately wipe out the spoon. While it is liquid, it's very easy to clean out of the spoon. This is like a plastic, so once it hardens, it's a little bit harder to clean up. And then I just use a palette knife to pry that up off the parchment paper, and then you can use that as is. You can just glue it down. But I wanted to enhance the image that's on that seal. So I prepped it with an EK Success powder tool. I don't know that that really made a difference, but then I went over the design with a Versamark pen, just trying to add the embossing ink just to the image itself. And then I'm going to apply some Perfect Pearls over that. So the Perfect Pearls are just going to stick to wherever that embossing pen was applied. But it does kind of coat some other areas as well, but that's okay. It really highlights that image so you can tell what's stamped in that embossing powder. The embossing powder is not as thick as wax, and so it just gives you a little bit more delicate of a look. And by using the embossing glazes, those are translucent, so it just gives a different look than wax. So I pulled out one of the newer stamps and just used that to add some more detail to that card. And then now I'm going to build my cluster up. So I'm just kind of gluing everything down on the front of this card. I'm going to use the Multimedia Matte to glue the wax seal down. This is just a little bit stronger of a glue than that Barely Arts adhesive, and I'm going to put a stamp block on top of that while it dries. I really want to make sure that that sticks, because again, it's like melted plastic at this point. You also want to make sure that you do that in a well ventilated area because you're melting plastic. But there's a look at the finished page. If you have any questions or comments, be sure to leave those down below. Check out the description box for links to everything that I mentioned today. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to my channel if you're not already subscribed. And until next time, thank you so much. Bye-bye.